Where in our society do the crazy ideas really get tried? It's the entrepreneurs. It's small teams of guys and girls who are so passionate about making something happen, they're willing to risk everything for something they believe in.
It's always the craziest ideas. Most of the world just might not be looking at it from the same angle.
I think it's important to risk for something that you believe in.
You rewrite the rules.
I took Stephen Hawking up and gave him the time of his life when he was floating in zero G.
Ultimately, our goal is to go back to from whence we came, start stuff.
Oops.
Dr. Peter Diamandis is an engineer and the founder of XPRIZE, a foundation that awards multi-million-dollar prizes to technological developments that benefit mankind. He's a co-founder of 12 companies, including Space Adventures Limited, which has sent 8 civilians to the International Space Station, and he's the co-author of the New York Times bestseller, Abundance: The Future is Better Than You Think. I always say this show is my chance to learn, and today I'm honored to be learning from one of the greatest minds of our planet. Thank you for coming to talk to me today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Let me get right into it by asking you, what is Incentivize innovation?
I believe that there is no problem on this planet we can't solve. Fundamentally. What we do is we put up a very clear goal, like a target, and we ask people around the world to try and solve that problem. What we're learning is that real breakthrough solutions come from the most unexpected places. Because sometimes the expert is the guy or the gal who can tell you exactly how it can't be done. And a true breakthrough is someone who looks at a problem with a new point of view and says, why can't you do it this way? And that's really the breakthrough. So I got my start in Incentivize competitions reading about Charles Lindbergh. And the story is that at the turn of the last century, in 1919, a Frenchman, Raymond Orteig, who is born in Paris, grows up in New York, wants to connect his old home and his new home with aviation, offers up a $25,000 prize for the first person to fly between New York and Paris. And everybody laughed at him, said, it can't be done, it's too crazy an idea, that's way longer than anyone ever flown. But this $25,000 prize inspires 9 different teams to spend $400,000. And Lindbergh, the most unlikely guy to do it, he was called the Flying Fool, because no one would sell him an airplane or an engine, makes the flight and opens up aviation. Now the question we ask is, okay, the goal there was opening up global aviation. What's the new goal? What is a problem we want to solve? Can we set a very clear goal and then inspire teams to go and attack it and solve it?
It's always the craziest ideas, you know, and who are we to say that they're crazy? It's just that most of the world just might not be, you know, looking at it from the same angle, but, you know, they eventually get it when it serves humanity.
It's very true, Pharrell, when I say that the day before something is truly a breakthrough, it's a crazy idea, right? If it wasn't a crazy idea, it wouldn't be a breakthrough. It'd be a little faster computer is not a breakthrough, but going from using vacuum tubes to silicon is a breakthrough. And so where do crazy ideas get tried? What happens is the large companies, the biggest companies in the world, are afraid to try crazy ideas because if they fail and they get egg on their face, their stock price plummets. And the government, also the same thing. If you try something big and it fails publicly, there's a congressional investigation. So where in our society do the crazy ideas really get tried? It's the entrepreneurs. It's the small teams of guys and girls who are so passionate about making something happen. They're willing to risk everything, their lives, their reputation, their fortunes for something they believe in. And that's where true innovation comes from, that kind of inner drive.
Would you say that there was a moment in your childhood that sort of prompted you to like fall in love with space?
Oh yeah, sure. Both my parents were immigrants from Greece, and I grew up in New York, born in the Bronx. My dad became a doctor, and it was expected I'd become a doctor too, and ended up pursuing medicine, but all my youth, it was Star Trek, and the Apollo program that was my inspiration.
Right, you went to medical school,
I did go to
right?
medical school. I went to medical school to make my mom happy. I went all the way through, never practiced. In fact, I had 2 companies going my 4th year medical school. I had started a university called International Space University, and I started a rocket launch company. I had a famous meeting with my dean of medical school who basically called me in one day because he said, you're not paying very much attention at school these days. And you're on the phone all the time. I bought one of those large Motorola brick phones. And he goes, do you want to graduate? And I said, I do. I very much do want to graduate. But I fessed up and I said, but my love, my passion is space. And I'm doing this other stuff. And he said, I'll make you a deal. I'll let you graduate if you promise not to practice medicine.
Wow.
And he kept his bargain and I kept mine.
And is that what sent you back to MIT?
I chose going after space and doing my aerospace engineering work at MIT because it was my calling in life. You know, when people say you have a God-given mission,
Sure.
my mission, my calling was opening the space frontier. I said, I'm going to be part of humanity's exploration of the cosmos. It's what drives me. I think we have a moral obligation to explore the world. My friend Elon Musk talks about backing up the biosphere. You know, everything we've ever heard created is on this small planet we have.
Right.
Every life form, every piece of data, every piece of music and dance and culture is here.
Totally.
And if we get wiped out, you know, by an asteroid strike, by any human disaster, whatever it might be, I'm an optimist and don't, you know, think we can avoid those things. But should we? What a terrible loss.
Totally.
Just as we're on the very edge of being able to imagine being able to duplicate all the data on the internet and take it off the world. Imagine being able to sequence every species on the planet and take that data. We can literally, not want to say necessarily duplicate, but back up. You know, we back up our computers, we back up all our data. You could back up the Earth, if one sense, because we're about to become a multiplanetary species.
Well, isn't there a seed farm? There
is a seed farm, and
so that's like the start.
It
I
is
mean,
a start.
we're behind, based on your schedule. We're behind.
It is a start, but we're still here on this one planet.
Yeah.
And there is the sense that, you know, it's the 1490s. You know, Columbus is looking out across the Atlantic and saying there's a new world there. We're at that very beginning where we're looking out at the cosmos and saying, you know, Mars, maybe colonies we create.
Sure.
And it's all science fiction. It's all impossible. It's all crazy until we pull it off.
Yeah. Every time you look at the stars, you know that there's so much more possible on this planet.
Yeah. You know, I think about the notion that we're at one of the most incredible periods ever of human history. I mean, people need to know that we're amazingly lucky to be alive right now.
Yeah.
It's like insanely amazing. You know, thousands of years from now, whatever humanity is, we're going to be looking back at these next few decades as the moment in time where the human race left Earth and became a multiplanetary species.
Oh yeah.
And that's only happened once before, in one sense, when we left the oceans and came onto land, and now so it's now. We're all part of it. We're part of this epic adventure that humanity is taking.
I also believe that there's a shift too, just across all disciplines, you know, from art all the way to architecture. Like, we are realizing that we're units of awareness, you know, trapped in flesh, and that ultimately our goal is to go back to from whence we came, star stuff.
We're becoming, exactly
as Carl Sagan once called us.
Yeah, we're becoming conscious on a completely new level of existence.
Yeah.
And it's palpable. I mean, you can feel it, right? As we're becoming interconnected, as you said, as we start to see examples from around the world, and we realize we're far more connected as a species than ever before, far more intimate with each other, and that leads, I think, ultimately to an uplifting of all of society.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. I agree. Man, I could do this for days. So were astronauts for you like rock stars?
Yeah. So when I was growing up, I was born in the 60s, and I grew up at the tail end of Apollo and Star Trek, and it was like, wow, we're going to the moon, man, we're going to the stars. It was like this expectation that it was all happening. And the astronauts were my rock stars. They were what I wanted to become. And you know, we got to the moon in July of 1969, and then we left in December of 1972, and we never have gone back. This thing driven by politics, boom, ended, done.
Totally.
And I bought the inspiration, and then ultimately waited for the government to do it and to do it and to do it, to the point where I said, okay, they're not going to do it. Fine, just do it myself. And it became this absolute personal commitment to being responsible myself for making that dream come true and not waiting for someone else to do it. And that's one of the lessons I want to share with every kid I meet, which is you can make your dreams come true today. And so I went from someone complaining about a problem to someone really working to fix it.
Totally. We're on the same page. And so would you say that, like, you know, in your formative years, that like science for you was a creative subject?
I would look at the world of Star Trek and think, well, how would you make that happen? right? I read a lot of science fiction. Arthur C. Clarke was someone I knew.
Genius.
Yeah.
Genius
and
guy.
It's only science fiction today, but it could be made science fact.
Sure.
You know, I'm on this epic, crazy asteroid mining adventure right now.
Awesome.
Every breakthrough was once science fiction. I mean, we're living in a science fiction universe right now.
Sure. I find that, like you said, like science fiction really honestly fuels the way we look at things. Isaac Asimov, you know.
Yeah.
You know, the whole reason why, like, we look at robots the way that we do.
Absolutely.
You know, he actually changed. You know, they were meant to be these mean robots that were going to, you know, vilify, you know, the whole entire world. And actually, he was the one that, you know, he was the first guy to sort of reverse that and made us think that maybe robots could actually help us. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, through science fiction, those are the guys that dream beyond the stars. They dream beyond, like, physics. And, you know, it's people like yourself and Kurzweil, like, you guys are changing our world.
Thank you.
It's awesome.
Thank you.
So were you competitive growing up?
I was a geek, no question. I was competitive in school to the extent of I wanted to do my best, but it wasn't competing against other people, it was competing against myself.
Much of the successes you've been involved with have come through competitions like the XPRIZE, which I think is so cool.
We do a lot of our best work when we compete in sports, you know, in the Olympics, in business, you know, finding your girlfriend or spouse, whatever the case might be. We compete for things like that, and we push harder and harder. And sometimes even a competition allows collaboration, right? When you've got a team working together to win. When I read about Lindbergh crossing the Atlantic, I said, aha, that's a great model. And I started reading about prizes before that, you know, that the British Navy in 1714 created a prize to tell the longitude. We could tell latitude, but not the longitude. The Navy was losing all of these ships on the rocks, and so they put up a prize, solved that one. Napoleon was going into Russia in the 1800s, attacking Russia from Paris, and all of his troops were dying from malnutrition, and so and from starvation. He put up a prize for preserving food, and a French candy maker came up with the idea of canning foods as winning that prize. And then I started realizing that prizes were used all throughout history, and they stopped. And I was kind of, okay, I'm going to restart prizes to try and solve the world's biggest problems.
And you said that constraints are critical when it comes to competition. So what are the benefits and the detriments of these, you know, constraints? So
if you gave a group of people all the money, all the resources and the technology in the world, you said, solve this problem. What they, you know, people, unfortunately, typically are risk adverse and they're lazy. Meaning they don't want to take big risks, and if they have all the time and the money, they'll use the time and the money to try and solve the problem. And that's the way it's typically done, at least in large companies and governments. If you said, listen, you don't have all the money. In fact, you don't have the amount of money you want. You got 1/100th the amount of money. You got 1/10th the amount of time. You got 1/10th the amount of people. You constrain it. People talk about thinking out of the box. I'm saying, no, go shopping for a really small box. And when you constrain the solution and you say, you know, like MacGyver, you only got, you know, bubble gum, a piece of thread, and something to go solve this problem. Most people say it can't be done. I'm giving up. But the person who says, well, how would I do it? And they start trying to figure out how to have their MacGyver moment, they come up with a breakthrough because they're not doing it the same old way. They're having it completely reinvented on the massive constraints they have. So constraining something and giving people a clear goal that says, first person to get there, first person to break that 4-minute mile, you know, wins. People start like really, you know, trying to figure out how would I do that, and they get very creative very quickly.
Were you worried about the constraints at all?
Here was the first XPRIZE. I wanted to demonstrate to the world that a small team could build a private spaceship and get you and me into space. Because if we could open up the space frontier, it was the very beginning of humanity moving out. The question is, what were the rules going to be? And a lot of conversation, but the basic idea, because I'd been thinking about this for 20 years, was, okay, build a private spaceship, had to be privately funded. I want the government money coming. I wanted everybody worrying about every penny they spent. It had to be able to carry 3 people into space. So there'd be a pilot and 2 paying passengers, or I like to joke, an autopilot and 3 very brave passengers going up going up to 100 kilometers altitude, which we defined as space. You had to land again, and then with the same ship, make the trip again.
Is that outside of the atmosphere?
It is. The atmosphere goes up to about 6.
Stratosphere?
Yeah, the atmosphere we fly in traditionally, consumer jets, Southwest and such will fly up to 48,000 feet. This is 328,000 feet, so almost 10 times higher. And there's no atmosphere. You're in space. You got the curvature of the Earth down below. It's blackness of space above. You're weightless for about 3.5, 4 minutes as you're going over the top of this flight. So we set those goals, and we worked really hard to make sure they were reasonable. They were audacious, not easy to do, but achievable. Because if we set a goal that was way too hard, no one did it, didn't matter.
Right.
And if we did it too easy and everyone did it, it didn't matter. So it's a balance between the two that was so important. And it worked out well. Richard Branson came in and bought the rights to the winning technology and created Virgin Galactic. You have a seat to go up yet?
You know what? It's come up a couple times, and I'm wrestling with it.
Okay. What are you wrestling with?
I feel the same way about like safari, and like animals. I am so blown away by the things that we weren't able to let go as a species that we still have in common with like the animals, because we are essentially animals,
we are,
right?
Of course.
Right. We just have something else that they don't. When I went on a safari one time, I realized that I was in, this open truck, and it was like maybe 10 of us. And I saw 14 lions looking at me. And I remember thinking to myself, if I get back to base, I will never do this again. Because the pixelation on National Geographic is awesome. It's awesome. Listen, we have really good technology these days. It's super clear. It's like you're almost there, except you're not.
You're not dinner.
That's right. Bathroom break doesn't mean you're like dinner for something. And I was traumatized as a child, because I remember I was in 7th grade when the first space shuttle crashed.
Yeah.
And that blew me away.
Challenger, yeah.
So I'm telling you how that affected me.
Yeah.
So for me, the Science Channel does such a good job of curation that I take their word for it.
So let's talk about risk.
Okay.
All right, because the stats, people know, airplanes are pretty darn safe. They're the safest mode of transportation.
Totally.
Right? At the end of the day, I believe that it's important for people to be able to risk themselves for things they're passionate about.
This is true.
Right? And so I would risk my life if I had a chance to go and help open the space frontier, because it's something that is meaningful to me.
Right.
And I've risked reputation, I've risked my capital, my time, right? The most constrained thing we have, I've invested in that because I'm driven by that. When the XPRIZE was going on, I'm in Congress, I'm talking about this to Congress, and this Congress person stands up and goes, Dr. Diamandis, aren't you in fact asking people to risk their lives, and some people might kill themselves going after this? And I was sort of like taken aback by this. And I was like, I had that conversation a few months earlier that prepared me to answer that. I said, I am, but aren't you happy? Aren't you thrilled that 500 years ago, Europeans risked their lives and gave their lives to cross the Atlantic and create America? And then hundreds of years ago, 200 years ago, they gave their lives and risked their lives crossing the Great Plains to open the American West. I mean, we're here as Americans because people risked their lives for something they believed in. We're about to enter the greatest epic era of innovation and exploration ever. And I think it's important to risk for something that you believe in. Doesn't have to be you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I can take you up on a zero-G airplane and we could do that. I took Stephen Hawking up, the world's expert in gravity.
Sure.
Can't move a muscle, and gave him the time of his life when he was floating in zero-G. Everybody told me, "Do not do. You're gonna kill the world's most famous physicist." And it's like, no, this guy wants to do it. He deserves the chance. He's been in a wheelchair for 40 years. to float free inside this airplane. It was epic. I loved it. Took me.
MG. What did he say?
Well, he said
when he came down.
he came, he only speaks through his computer, right?
Sure.
And he said he could have gone on and on, that he loved the experience.
It was amazing. The zero G part was wonderful, and the high G part was no problem. I could have gone on and on. Space, here I come.
It was awesome.
Wow, that's amazing, man. Looks like we're going to go experience zero G.
Let's do it. Absolutely. It's going to be a blast.
So you put a 10-year stamp on asteroid mining.
Yeah.
And my question is, how did you decide how much is enough time to accomplish something?
The notion is, I see extraordinary technologies coming online today. We're in the middle of besides opening up the space frontier, we're in the middle of an explosive period of technology, right? Computers are getting faster and faster and faster, and they're exploding on the scene. Artificial intelligence, robotics, 3D printing, synthetic biology, and all of these technologies are enabling us to do epic things in the world. What Steve Jobs did with Apple and all of the apps that are online right now, and the fact that there are 1 billion cell phones in Africa by 2016, and a Maasai warrior on a cell phone has got better mobile communications and access to more knowledge than President Clinton did 15 years ago. It's amazing stuff.
Sure.
So I said, okay, I think that these technologies will enable us to build the spacecraft that can go and find these asteroids, actually go out to the asteroids, and ultimately lay claim to them. And then once we've got these rocks, can we extract the resources and bring them back for the benefit of humanity? Because we can strip this planet and we can mine everything out of it, or we can realize that the Earth is a crumb in a supermarket filled with resources. We can go get our resources someplace else and bring back just the stuff that we need.
You founded 2 universities, including Singularity University. What is and was your goal in creating an alternative to the type of college that you attended?
Yeah, great question. So, you go to...
You rewrite the rules.
Yeah, I guess.
When need be.
When need be. I mean, I want to teach that. You go to the best schools in the world, right? To Stanford, to Tokyo University, to Harvard, wherever it might be, and you get your PhD. You become a world's expert in a really narrow niche. But today, I think what's more important is the individual who's got the broad view, who can ask the big questions. And so I wanted to create a university that would have extraordinary thinkers, creative thinkers, come in and give you an overview of what's going on in the most powerful technologies, artificial intelligence and robotics and 3D printing and synthetic biology and digital medicine and computers and networks and sensors. And where are these technologies all going? And how do you use them to solve the world's biggest problems? That's the key thing, right? The university, Singularity University, is all about how to use these technologies to solve water, food, housing, literacy, energy, governance. Because again, the notion is that there is no problem we can't solve.
The possibilities are immeasurable, and the good news is there's guys like you that wake up every day trying to figure out how we can do it. So,
Pharrell, thank you.
Well, it's a pleasure to have met you. I hope I'm not applying too much pressure, but I would love to be an annoying friend. And
I would love to have you. We get together here at the XPRIZE every year. We bring together an amazing group of people, right?
Sure.
From Jim Cameron to Jim Giannopoulos. And we come and we brainstorm what are the biggest problems in the world that we should be solving.
Sure.
So we'd love to have you come and be part of that group, set the agenda of where should we be creating XPRIZEs.
Dude, would love to. This is like awesome.
Awesome.
Pleasure's mine. Thank you. Yes, sir.
What's the new goal? What is a problem we want to solve? Can we set a very clear goal and then inspire teams to go and attack it and solve it? It's very true, Pharrell, when I say that the day before something is truly a breakthrough, it's a crazy idea, right? If it wasn't a crazy idea, it wouldn't be a breakthrough. Artificial intelligence, robotics, 3D printing, synthetic biology, and all these technologies are enabling us to do epic things in the world. Because we can strip this planet and we can mine everything out of it, or we can realize that the Earth is a crumb in a supermarket filled with resources.
Pharrell Williams here.
Hi, I'm Joy Bryant,
I'm Eric Ripper,
I'm Tom Colicchio.
I'm Dr. Frank Lipman,
the host of On the Table,
the host of Across the Board,
Host of ARTST Talk.
Host of Hooked Up.
host of the show Be Well Week, Be Well Weekend on the Reserve Channel.
It's only on Reserve.
Did you know that you can follow my show on social media sites like Facebook?
Follow us on Twitter.
If you're a fan of my show, hit the like button.
All of the above.
Share me with your friends.
Treat yourself. Check out a new episode of my show, Hooked Up.
And if you want to leave comments, feedbacks, ideas, whatever, love to hear from you. Leave a comment.
And if you don't want to miss the show, be sure to subscribe.
The one that's like down here, or is it here? Somewhere down here.
Thanks for watching the Reserve channel.
Only on YouTube. Throw caution to the wind and ask yourself what rules.